Get ready to grow. Good evening and welcome to the program. I'm Steve White. In the next half hour, we're going to take a look at what's happening in Nebraska agriculture. Stay tuned to learn why Farm Bureau wants to diversify farms to weather economic storms. Plus, the U.S. and China spar over seed technology, and we head to Taiwan through the eyes of a local farm youth. But we start with a look at water policy, and the state may have to pay up to keep up with its water supply, as the state task force looking at water issues recommends $50 million to pay for water conservation issues. But there's no commitment yet to specific projects. The task force says that money is needed to ensure a sustainable water supply for drinking, crop, irrigation, interstate water compacts, and wildlife. The task force says funding options could include a tax on soft drinks, an excise tax on ethanol, or taxes on fertilizer and bottled water. Senator Tom Carlson, the task force chairman, says they chose to focus on long-term planning. He says the state has overused its water supply and needs to find ways to preserve it. A Kansas lawmaker says it may be time to consider stricter penalties for those who do overuse their supply of irrigation water. Joe Seward told the Special Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources he has received several letters from irrigators trying to follow state rules who are angry about neighbors who break those rules. The Kansas Department of Agriculture is looking into new penalties for conservation violations. Have we maxed out yield potential with cereal grains? New research suggests about 30% of rice, wheat, and corn may have reached maximum possible yields. According to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, yields of these crops recently decreased or plateaued. That's a concern when it comes to feeding a growing world, since projections had factored the historical trends would continue. But rapid advances in technology may not continue, so past estimates may have been too optimistic. Stirring up some controversy, the Food and Drug Administration suggests in 3 years there should be no use of antibiotics in livestock to promote growth. Mike Apley, a leading veterinarian in the cattle feeding industry from Kansas State University, says this new guidance sets a troubling precedent on the restrictions of antibiotics.
We have very little information to tell us which combination of magnitude of exposure and duration of exposure is the most threatening, or even if it is threatening.
The new voluntary plan released by the FDA wants to decrease the amount of antibiotics used in food animals in hopes of reducing the amount of antibiotic resistance in humans. Apley says the problem with this plan is there's little evidence to prove antibiotics used to promote growth in livestock have adverse effects on humans.
I'm not saying that none of our uses have a potential to have an adverse impact on animal or human health. I'm not saying that at all, that there's just everything's perfect. I am saying that the vast majority of them are likely very safe.
Antibiotics used in feed or water to prevent or control disease in animals will still be allowed under the supervision of a veterinarian. Apley says the FDA's next step may be to consider restricting the uses of these types of antibiotics. He hopes there will be more research done into antibiotic effects before they are restricted from producers. Zoetis, formerly Pfizer Animal Health, supports the new guidelines as part of good animal stewardship. And recently, a beef nutritionist from Zoetis spoke to the Nebraska Cattlemen on the subject of defending agriculture in a Facebook world.
We are 3 and 4 generations removed from the farm, so it's really very implicit upon the ag industries to educate the public on how we produce our food. We eat the same food we produce. The very food that I eat, my grandkids eat. I would never recommend anything that go in their diet that would hurt them. We eat what we produce.
Beefing up the beef state. That's a focus for Nebraska Farm Bureau, as they say more diversity is needed on the farm to weather economic trends. Here's more.
We are unfortunately becoming a smaller minority all the time.
Farmers and ranchers like the Cooksleys of Custer County make up about 2% of the population, but feed nearly 100% of us. Clear Creek Farm is diversified.
We have a cow-calf purebred operation, some row crop and a lot of alfalfa, a little bit of corn.
That used to be the norm in Nebraska, but over the decades, many have focused strictly on corn. Farm Bureau would like to see more livestock to help farmers weather uncertain markets.
There's opportunities to create diversity that we haven't had for a long time, where we can have operations again that have both livestock and row crop and are able to withstand some of the challenges that the market can provide when we have high prices in one area or another.
Corn prices have made a big drop this year, but cattle prices are strong.
It's an opportunity that I think we've overlooked in the state, and there's some real opportunities there to grow livestock in the state and create opportunities for young farmers and ranchers.
Farm Bureau has made livestock expansion a priority, but members say the biggest issue remains tax reform, especially as property values skyrocket.
They've been going up an average of 20% a year for the last 5 years, and I don't see that slowing down.
Last year, farmers clashed with the governor on tax reform. He wanted to end sales tax exemptions that would have seen farmers pay more for seed and equipment. But this year, Farm Bureau works alongside the governor, but they encounter state senators who feel the system is fine as it is. Farmers clearly disagree.
Property taxes are carrying over 40% of the load of the total tax load, and with the valuations just going up so steeply every year, we cannot keep that up, and they have to find a way to shift the paradigm.
A livestock specialist at Iowa State University says falling corn prices are generating optimism among livestock producers. Historically high corn prices during the last several years drove up the cost of feed, and many producers cut herd numbers as the drought intensified. Lee Schultz, a livestock specialist, says producers have been in survival mode but are beginning to talk about expansion. Feedlots made money on cattle sold in October, breaking a long streak of monthly losses. He says it will take several years to build the herd with increased calf crops and increasing cattle supplies because of the time it takes for calves to mature. Corn prices are lower, and some say in part because the Chinese have held up shipments of U.S. corn. The Chinese say they found unapproved genetic strains in those shipments. Corn futures were also falling because of expectations the government will raise its crop production estimate next month. Meanwhile, a Chinese man is under arrest, accused of stealing trade secrets from cornfields in Iowa and Illinois. The U.S. Attorney for Iowa has announced the arrest of Mo Hailong, known as Robert Mo. The federal prosecutor says Mo took seed with the intent to transfer it to China, and that seed represents valuable intellectual property. They say the suspect works for a Chinese seed company. DuPont Pioneer and Monsanto reported that suspicious activity to the FBI. The hum of machines has been a constant on the farm for generations. The rumble of a truck or tractor, though, may be drowned out by something else. Kevin Boughton reports the future of farming may be changed with a joystick.
Farmers have always had a close relationship with the ground, but their kids
All right, here we go.
are taking to the sky. Students in this animal science class are learning how to examine fields and livestock using drones.
You can just take the drone and fly it up there and go look at what you need to look at and come back and land it.
And then look at the pictures or video on a computer, turning a chore that needs a truck, gas, and a lot of time into a quick flight, which to these sophomores seems more like a video game.
Right now I'm moving the joystick to my right and it's going my left right now.
This group is small.
There's only 10 of us in this class that really get to fly with these drones.
The lesson is unique to appropriately name.
Is there any school around here that does something similar to this?
The proud son of a ranching family, Joel Nelson says he can already see how he'd use one at home.
In the future, it's just going to be a easy deal and we can just get the drone and go fly and see what we need to see and then come back and we won't have to take the time to get this truck started up, you know, and then put it back in the shed. You can just get your drone and it'll be waiting.
The next generation of farmers take to the sky to nurture the soil. North of Holton, Kevin Boughton, Kansas First News.
That setup there, they believe, will cost about $1,000, but should come down in price as technology improves. And now a move to bring quality tools to farmers across the world. Lexington's Orthman Manufacturing is expanding into South Africa. A product assembly facility and warehouse opened in Kempton Park there in South Africa. It will provide products and support services for Orthman and John Deere dealers in that region. Well, 2013 is quickly coming to a close, so we want to know, what do you think are the biggest stories in Nebraska agriculture this year? Is it the frustration over the Farm Bill, lingering drought, maybe challenges in the ethanol industry, or HSUS and PETA making inroads in Nebraska? Or finally, could it be Governor Dave Heinemann's failed attempt to eliminate sales tax exemptions on farmers? Log on to our website, nebraska.tv, and cast your vote. 100 years and still going strong. After the break, we visit with the head of the Nebraska College of Technical Agriculture.